Alright, what's going on everybody? It's Matt and welcome to another slider video here. We are catching up with a couple of updates. We're at version 1.10 I think right now for the updates, and so yeah, we've just got a lot going on the operations support side of things. I've been working on sliders for a couple of months now, trying to keep up with them. And feel really good at where we're at, so check them out here. Leave your comments below if you have any questions, concerns. As always, we are playing world class and legendary. I personally go world class for home matches and legendary for away matches. The minimum you can go, I would say we're pretty much close to 10 minutes to 15 minutes. I've seen guys that have played at 8 minutes. Wouldn't recommend 6 minutes. If you do that, increase that run frequency so you can get a little bit more attack from the computer and yourself. So but yeah, that's pretty much our breakdown. It hasn't really changed since the last couple of videos. One thing that people have been testing on the operation support side of things is playing on slow and normal. So far there's no significant difference, so if you're somebody who absolutely wants to play normal, go ahead. There should be no issues. So the first value we look at now is sprint speed. Sprint speed's been all over the place for us, and we've finally settled in on a good spot. Sprint speed is currently at 45 for the user and 48 for the computer. Now, why under 50 and why the discrepancy? So the reason we're going under 50 is because we've noticed that there's a lot more physicality with a lower sprint. This has kind of been the same with most FIFAs in the past. Even the Ignite engine did the same thing. And so we just wanted to follow this. Some guys had started at 42. We had tried that and it had been really good. And then version 110 came out, and then we just had to move along and try the right value, and found that 45 was a good one. The problem was the computer had issues kind of keeping up with the players at 45 as well. So that's why we created a discrepancy of 48. 48, it was just some value that we wanted to make sure that the computer had enough sprint in them to keep up with the user. So a good example of this would be when you're running down the flank and the defensive midfielder tries to go and close you down, and they'd give up too easily, and thus resulting in the fullback now to take over. By then they're already behind the play. We also saw some weird animations to do with some other values, but this sprint speed definitely helps the computer stay engaged with the player with the ball. There's a lot more physicality too, which is really exciting. Really nice to see that, because you haven't really seen that with the Frostbite engine other than some weird collisions. Those collisions will still happen, but not to the same level as before in terms of the awkwardness or anything like that. But yeah, overall the sprint speed at 45-48 has been really nice. We like this discrepancy as well, just so it gives that computer a little extra kind of sense of needing to sprint longer. You don't see in real life players just stopping or just starting to jog, even though they're chasing down a player. So we wanted to keep that in there and keep the realism intact. All right, so next is acceleration at 50 apiece. We haven't modified this, haven't really needed to. Don't want to go under 50 because that affects the fatigue negatively, meaning that the fatigue doesn't come as quickly. So therefore it just doesn't make it very realistic. The computer will stop subbing, etc. So I know I've explained this in other videos, but just something worth going over again. So acceleration just stays at 50. Next is shot error at 50. So we've left this at 50. I think at one point we had it at 49, but we like this at 50 because the shot error is kind of very stat based. You don't see a lot of magical shots from players that shouldn't be shooting. Like if I have Ryan Shawcross or something like that taking a shot from 30 yards, it's not going to hit on frame. If it is, it's going to be a dribbler, or something like that. So feel good about shot error at 50. On top of that, it also allows us some room to work with in case there are individuals that choose to go on lower minutes per half, 8 minutes, 10 minutes, etc. So that way it doesn't feel like the computer is missing a lot of chances and the user isn't missing a lot of chances. This is a lot of room for you depending on what minutes you play and kind of the results you're seeing. So feel good about shot error at 50. value we have here is pass error at 50. We had this a little higher, 52, and also at 54 at one point, and we decided, you know what, we're going to look into pass error, and I spent a good amount of time testing the pass error values, and other guys as well looked at the pass error at 50, and the overall feedback was the computer seemed to be more hesitant with the ball, in the sense of not just sending a driven pass as quickly as possible. It's not to say that's removed by any means at all. It's more so to say that they have a little bit more consideration of who they're passing to. See a little bit more build up, a little bit more safe passes, because the goal with FIFA is really any game, but FIFA in particular, you have that pass error value at 50. They're trying to reach a certain percentage now, in terms of their pass accuracy percentage. So you have it at 50, they're going to try to reach, hopefully mid 70s to mid 80s. And as you go lower, of course, now you get higher into the 80s and 90s and so forth. So with pass error as well, we wanted to focus on crossing the ball in FIFA 18 in particular. This Frostbite engine, the new thing that they did with the crosses here, are really strange. Like, they've got enough pace on them at times, but sometimes it's just very, very slow, and usually it's right to the keeper. So definitely a strange one that I've seen. I've really only seen it offline. I haven't seen it online as much of an issue. So something to keep an eye out in terms of pass error. So we just kept it simple, keep it at 50. Computer plays fine, the user plays fine. FIFA's doing really good this year about playing true to ratings, and so feel that pass error at 50 is the way to go. Value here is shot speed. Shot speed is at 51 apiece. Why would we increase this? I'll tell you, the biggest thing for me with shot speed at 51 is that we've got a lot better deflections now against the keeper, against the defender. I had shots at one point where they were going to a defender and he would essentially be trapping the ball instead of the ball deflecting off of him, to go off, to find a lucky touch or something like that. Same goes with the keeper. If you guys have followed me, you'll know for years that I'm a big fan of deflections and shots that are saved, that are pushed out for corners, parried away by the goalkeeper, and you didn't see that as much on 50 shot speed. So 51 brings a lot of kind of randomness, and I think a lot of the beauty that PES used to have with those goal mouse scrambles, and I think FIFA's taken over, and it's even more pronounced here with the shot speed increase. All right, next value here is pass speed at 48. Now 48, I was definitely hesitant to drop it down from 50. We've seen it in the past with 50 pass speed can sometimes be a little too wild, but then if you go too low, you also kind of get everything as like a soft touch, right? And I've seen values from 20 to 30 to 40, and we've played with those values, and the thing is, you have to kind of get the ball to be alive, and you can't do that with a really, really low pass speed. I'd love if you could, but the Frostbite engine's not built that way. It's already a soft feel on the player models and their animations and motions, etc. So it wouldn't make sense to lower the pass speed too much. And so why 48? 48's just kind of been where we've started from 45 and just moved up, and 48 seems really nice. Okay, the next two values are the injury values. We have frequency and severity. This hasn't changed. We haven't really modified this. If you guys watched the previous slider video, we're just seeing the same thing. Less players walking off the pitch, more recovering from injuries. And then severity, you're really seeing plenty of severe injuries and a good variety of injuries. And so I would say even there's a little bit more an additional injury severity in the last couple of updates. So again, it depends as well as which career mode you're in. If you're in a career mode from the beginning of FIFA 18, or if you just started a new one, you may get different results. And so we feel like the 64-4 combo here has been pretty consistent. Next value here is goalkeeper ability. We have moved this from 50 down to 48. Now, really, the big thing with goalkeeper ability is to, one, make sure we don't go too low, because if you go too low, the goalkeeper is going to start diving underneath the flight of the ball. So if you're taking a shot that goes to their chest, they're going to drop down and act like it's a driven low ball. And same goes if it's an upper 90 shot, they're going to just try to go mid to chest level and dive midway that way. In real life, that can happen, you know, if they're not sure about the arc of the shot or something like that. But it's overly too consistent with going too low. Started at, went from values in increments of 2, 45, a little too low, found our way back to 48. Feels perfect. Now we lowered this just a tad to just stop the ridiculous amount of saves. There are still a good amount of saves. Now you're going to see a little bit more human type of saves, right? You may still see the odd kind of super goalie that just happens in FIFA, but not as bad as it was before. The main thing as well is we want to look at crossing. We want to have some mistakes on crosses. You know, keepers aren't always going to be able to snatch those crosses or go out and punch those crosses, especially if they're driven with pace. I can understand if it's high in the air and, you know, they're obviously they can get to the ball a little bit quicker. That's easier to understand, but at times, you know, the goalkeeper shouldn't be able to just punch it as easy as possible. So hopefully with these adjustments we can see a good variety of saves and then also just some more human type behavior from the goalkeepers. Next value here is a sensitive one. It's marking. And marking, we have moved this all around. Right now we feel good about 52, and I think that's really where we're going to stay. The reason why marking is so sensitive, because you have to think about with FIFA custom team tactics. They can vary from all sorts of values, from 0 to 100 in aggression, 0 to 100 in pressure. So you really just can't go too crazy with that. And I've been guilty of that in the past, and I did that before when custom team tactics didn't really matter as much in some FIFAs, but last year they really did, and this year they definitely react to what you choose in the custom team tactics. So this was a good suggestion by the guys on Operation Sports. We have this slight increase because we've also made some adjustments to the height, length, or to the length and width, which I'll go into a little bit later, and the marking is just a way to compensate that. And next value here is run frequency. Run frequency, we have moved this all over the place again, but again with FIFA, and I think if you guys ever saw my first slider video, run frequency is down at 1 now. We like 1-1. This is just, this just happens no matter what, really. No matter where we end up with FIFA, we always find ourselves going to 1-1. If you think about it like a concept in terms of run frequency, 50-50, it's a run frequency, it's essentially like a 70-70, right? And 20 is like a 40, so really 1 is like a 10, essentially. Basically, you think about it like a streaking run, right? Players are going to run in streaks. They're going to go from point A to point B as quick as possible. It's not about run type with FIFA 18, and really the Frostbite engine. So it's not about that anymore. Now it's more so about how many runs you see, and then how many runs you see, no matter what, those are going to be streaking runs. And so run frequency at 1 really allows a little bit more build-up. The computer doesn't really seem to like this. They'll still pass the ball as quick as they can. So that's why we created some adjustments with the length and width to kind of help compensate that. It's definitely not perfect. Definitely needs to be looked at. I know there's guys that just really don't like a low run frequency because they feel like, okay, my teammates aren't moving for me, etc. That's where I would just recommend, hey, move that D-pad over to attack, ultra attack, and then, L1, of course, to move your players manually. But going into attack, an ultra attack with the D-pad and moving that status up, it's a good mentality to use, and that'll get your players right engaged, and then you can always drop it down. So it doesn't take a whole bunch of maneuvers, and it's pretty simple to do, and it doesn't ruin the base of the set. So overall, we really like run frequency at 1-1, and it's not how it sounds at all. Think of it more like a 10-10. It's still going to get plenty of movement, because if we would definitely know if we were just playing in the midfield the whole time. Granted, we would love a lot more midfield in FIFA 18, but you kind of take what you got here, and this has been a good balance of things and a good adjustment. And the next value here is height. Height hasn't been changed. We're staying at 60-60. We believe with height, no matter what, you're going to go to like 100, and your defensive line's really not going to react no matter what. And it's kind of unfortunate with FIFA 18 where they make the computer's defensive line react very well, and the user's defensive line not react as quickly. Essentially, you can go into the instructions in this custom team tactics and go into the instructions and choose for high aggression interceptions. That'll essentially create that aspect, but from a base standpoint, 60-60 has just kind of been where we're at. The main thing with that, the higher marking alone should allow these center backs and defensive line to move forward. It will, to a point. You'll still see the attackers still receive the ball. Our goal is really so they can't turn and face the goal, and that doesn't happen as often as it used to with before the value changes. So with height, the main thing that I personally concern myself with is, in the past, when you increase height, you also have to adjust the length, because if you go too high on the height, now your length of players, right, your midfielders essentially, they get kind of pushed up or warped up there out of position. With FIFA 18, I haven't seen that as much, which I really like. Notice that out of the box, and it's been consistent throughout. So this is why we can work with the height here at 60 and feel good about it. Next value here is length. This is our length of 42-44. So there's a discrepancy here, and the discrepancy here is really just to spread out the CPU players a tad defensively. Because of what I mentioned earlier about defensive angle animation, we noticed that there's a sense of indecision throughout the midfielders who are tracking back, trying to get to the ball carrier. And it felt really great about it at 42-44, and we just haven't, gone back to an even length. And it also balances out the sprint speed adjustment as well, because we have that at 45-48 respectively. So that length at 42-44 also creates that sense, and FIFA's done really great at understanding momentum in players, and so with those lower sprint values you get even more realistic momentum, and now you pair it up with a length discrepancy. Now you're bound to have some collision. You'll see a lot. The goal is always to see more fouls in any soccer video game, footy game, and I think with this adjustment there's definitely potential there. It's not to say it's 100% you're going to get 10 fouls in one half, but you'll see a lot more physicality. And that's really the goal here, to kind of build that midfield and create those passing lanes being blocked and everything from there. So length 42-44. Value here is width at 50 apiece. So we've dropped this down significantly from where it was. I believe it was at 60. Before then we had been testing as well at 52. We kind of found ourselves going just back and forth. It's tricky with each update though, and these are things that have to be kind of explored. With the defensive angle animation, I personally try to reverse engineer the whole thing, starting from default sliders, hour sliders, trying to find out what is the cause here, and eventually found that width was the really defining value that was really hurting things. Having a higher width was essentially creating this sense of the defensive midfielder being able to have more room to run. That was the concept essentially, but what it was doing, it was making them run even earlier into the fullback, thus ruining the zonal look. So that length as well is why we had to increase that length and then increase and decrease the width. So that way we use the length increase for the computer as a means of increasing the width, because anytime you increase length, you thus increase width. Next value here is fullback positioning at 50 apiece. This isn't getting touched. We had this at a decent value at one point in time. I know I personally have always tested it at 100. Just always see, I want to get the outside backs to get up the pitch, right? So that way in transition, they're there already, to pick off a pass, etc. But in FIFA, they do that pretty well on their own. So decided to leave this, and also don't want it to be so end-to-end where the computer gets the ball and right away they're trying to send the ball over the top. And the final value here for the slider set is first touch control. So we've had this again all over the place, but we finally set ourselves at first touch control at 55. It's been this way for a couple of our beta testing that we've done. It's just looking a lot better. It's tricky when we lower pass speed. As I said earlier, Frostbite engine is like a very soft engine, you know, from the player models to the interaction with the ball. It's just very soft. I think FIFA 17 was a little more rigid, not rigid, more so just more hard, if you will. Kind of, you could feel the weight of the ball, you could feel the weight of the players a little bit better than you can in FIFA 18. And so we had to find a good balance here between the pass speed, pass error, the sprint, and then the first touch control kind of builds that all up. And guys, that is it for the FIFA 18 slider update for version 1.10, version 1.10. Hopefully, you know, that's my number 10, so hopefully that's the lucky number that EA will stop the updates. But even if they do, I mean, I just wanted to say thank you to EA for pushing updates. Honestly, I mean, you guys know I'm a PES fan, and we've had one update, right? Gameplay update that was very vague and no idea what it even did. And here's FIFA always improving, always listening to community, you know, and just updating and when they can. And their updates sometimes hurt, they sometimes help. But at least they're trying, and at least we have that pursuit with sliders to improve the game that we purchased as, you know, consumers. And so that's my little spiel on that. And I think it's a big deal, and I think a lot of you guys will agree with me that we're in a good spot here with FIFA, and it can only go up. It's amazing how FIFA's stats are better than PES has ever been in this most recent Fox engine for PES, and then here in the Frostbite and Ignite engine as well. You get true values being played out in FIFA, and I think the tables are turning quite a bit now, and hopefully PES steps up to make FIFA better, because right now FIFA's in the lead. I know a lot of guys that don't usually play FIFA are actually playing it and really enjoying it, and I hope you guys really enjoy it with these sliders. So as always, make sure to leave your comments below. I'd love to hear how everything goes. I just want to make a quick note here, guys, right before I leave you. I don't know if you have seen my Twitter feed or not, but I've recently joined the great team of Fulham Focus, so fulhamfocus.com. I'm going to be just part of their team. You know, more info will be released later on and everything if you stay tuned to the channel. But I've joined their team, and I'm really excited, and I really hope you guys check it out. Check out the website. Click on this link here to you know, subscribe to the channel. We don't have any content yet, but we are working on that, and I know you guys will love it. If you know it's coming from me, you know where I am with gaming and realism and everything from there. So please, you know, even if you're not a Fulham fan, please check that out. For those of you that don't know, I'm a Fulham fan, Fulham supporter, and you know, it's on my bucket list to visit Craven Cottage someday. Hopefully that'll happen soon, but it's an honor and a privilege to be able to work with the Fulham Focus team. They're an awesome group of guys, and I can't wait to you know, do my part. And with that shameless plug, guys, I appreciate you guys for watching the video. Appreciate you guys for your patience. I know I've got a lot of projects out there that need to get some attention. I really wanted to get this video out as soon as I could, and get this moving along for you guys, because I know I've gotten messages on Twitter, I've gotten messages on YouTube, guys commenting, and I really appreciate you guys staying on top of it. I'm gonna get so much more project focused and have more deadlines and get consistent. I really do appreciate you guys understanding on that. Just some things I got to work on my own, but you guys pushing me and helping me, you know, with this and focusing on realistic gaming, knowing that's what I'm all about, and I know you guys are all about. So it's all about you guys, and you know, let me know in the comments below how you felt about the sliders. If you have any questions, concerns, as always, leave your comments, and as always, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and don't forget, take care and stay tuned.